Hi everyone, so we're going to continue on with our life in the ocean, moving on to our domain of Eukarya, but our kingdom of Animalia. So unlike the other ones that we've seen so far, we're going to go one step down in our phylogenetic tree and start talking about different phylums of animals, because there's many more animals in the ocean than we saw with our protists and our plants. So let's take a look. Our first one is going to be the phylum of Pofferia. So some defining characteristics here are going to be very simple organisms, no complex organs or nervous systems, so no livers, no brains, no digestive system, nothing like that. So a great example of these are going to be our sponges. So let's take a look. So with our sponges here, we can see really no complex anything, but one thing I do want you to see here is, especially with our glass sponge, you can see it really well, there's kind of these thinner areas to our sponges, and that's how they're going to get their nutrition as the water flows in and out. So a couple examples here are going to be our glass sponge, a barrel sponge, tube sponges here. Let's talk a little bit more about these. So many species of sponges are able to protect themselves through toxic defense chemicals. So these chemicals are able to protect those sponges. But another thing that we are studying right now is whether or not these chemicals have the potential to become drugs to help fight against diseases. And that's seen a lot in different organisms, is us taking and studying certain chemicals that maybe are not easily found in other places and seeing if we can use them for a different purpose. So that's a big thing with sponges, of how we are studying them. But another really awesome thing about these sponges is that they're able to regenerate when broken off. So it's really important for them to have all of their different protrusions so they're able to get the nutrition that they need. So they can actually regenerate broken off pieces in less than 1 day. So that's one interesting thing about Pofferia. We're mostly going to see sponges in this category. So that's really the most complex thing about our Pofferia phylum here. Very simple organisms. They're able to produce some of these defense chemicals and also able to regenerate. Our next phylum is going to be Cinderia. So some examples here are going to be corals, jellyfish, and sea anemone. So again, these are probably things we're a little bit more familiar with. We have talked about coral quite a bit in coral reefs before. But let's talk about some of the defining characteristics that put them in this phylum. So all of them are going to have radial symmetry, and what that means is that they are symmetrical any way that you cut them. So if we take a look at this sea anemone that we cut in many different ways, we can see each way that we look at it, we're going to have a symmetrical on either side. We're also going to see that they have umbrella shapes with tentacles. So again, with our sea anemone, we can see we have kind of this umbrella shape right here, and we have the tentacles protruding from the top. Jellyfish are going to be a little bit different, but those are probably the best examples of that umbrella shape, and they have their tentacles coming from the bottom. And then one more defining characteristic here is that they have a mouth and cavity that they use for digestion and reproduction. So if we take a look at our sea anemone, we see all our tentacles. We can see we have our mouth here. That's going to bring us down into our digestive cavity. So first thing that we're going to talk about is our corals. We know that our coral is an animal called polyps, and they work together with the diaflagellate, those protists that live within them. So during the day, those diaflagellate are going to photosynthesize and make food, because again, that's when the sun is out, that's when these protists can really be beneficial. But then at night, we're going to see that coral is going to open up and feed on drifting plankton. So let's take a look at what that is. So during the day, we can see they're nice and closed up. Doesn't really give those characteristics of the umbrella shape with the tentacles. But at night, that's where we're going to see that specific shape for corals. So if we take a look here, we can see our nice umbrella shape with little tentacles protruding from the top. And again, similar to the sea anemone, we can see our mouths are right here in the center. So let's move on to our jellyfish. where jellyfish are usually characterized by those stinging cells that they have on their tentacles. Some are very toxic and deadly to animals, so we can see some of these stings on people. Depending on the type of jellyfish that you're stung by, you can actually die pretty quickly from these stings, so you have to be very careful when it comes to these types of animals. Especially when some of their tentacles can reach up to 130 feet. So they can really reach you from pretty much anywhere. So make sure we don't get close to these ones. But again, we can see this nice umbrella shape with those tentacles coming from the bottom. Right here too, we have a picture of the Portuguese man-o'-war, which is actually one of the most deadly jellyfish that we would find in the East Coast area. And then finally, we see our sea anemones. Our sea anemones live attached to rocks, waiting for their prey to swim by. Once they get entangled in their venomous tentacles here, that's when they can pull them into their mouths and eat that food. So tentacles at the center is our mouth and digestive cavity, so you can really see that here. We have our tentacles on the side, and right here in the center of our sea anemone, there is where we're going to see that mouth and digestive cavity. There is one fish, though, that is immune to this venom, and that is our clownfish. We might have seen this in Finding Nemo. And the reason they're immune to that venom is because of this protective mucus that surrounds them. So that is where we're going to stop for today. So we went over those two different phylums, Pofferia and Cinderia. If you have any questions, please let me know.